You may have a very good customer base and goodwill from those very customers, but without good corporate governance, your business is unlikely to stand the test of time. Hi, my name is Jimmy Walaviechi, and you're welcome to Corporate Governance Africa, where we seek to promote good governance through film. In this video, we consider the importance of good corporate governance systems in running a business for the long term. We consider the account of Café Il Solito, a business in Tokyo, Japan. Café Il Solito conducted business in 3 different locations, including Ginza, Ebisu, and Koriyama in Fukushima. The business ran for 10 years from 2007 before the founder of the business, Mr. Glen Onodera, was compelled to shut it down in 2017. He attributes its collapse to weak governance. But first, Glen shares the origins of the business.
The name of the cafe was Café Il Solito, which means the usual in Italian. It's kind of a spin-off of people just going into their favorite cafes and ordering the usual. It's what they have, and the barista becomes familiar with the customers. So as soon as someone walks in and they're like, I'll have the usual, they already know what their coffee is, if it's a latte or a cappuccino or espresso or whatever.
But how was the cafe's performance at the beginning of the business?
It went really, really well.
Glen attributed this success to a good customer base and goodwill.
It's weird, but in Japan, people love their canned coffees, but they're not so keen on having a good cup of coffee in the morning or having their first espresso. That wasn't a thing. But I tried all sorts of things, like going upstairs or out to the street level and handing out coffee for free. Just whatever techniques that I've seen growing up, like people outside yogurt shops handing out yogurts or whatever and sampling. So I would do that in the morning. And I also did, I think I was seriously one of the first places that did free Wi-Fi in Japan, in Tokyo. No one even knew what Wi-Fi was at that time, so it didn't really work out for me because people are like, oh, we're good, we don't need Wi-Fi. But now it's a crazy thing, right? Like everyone needs it. But I did little things like that, little gimmicks. I think people took more of an interest in me just being there and try to sell myself. So people would come in and get coffee. And I think for Japanese people, 500 yen for a cup of coffee was a little pricey, but they saw me in action. Like they saw, like it was my stage. So when they come in, they would see me making the coffee, and I would interact with the customers a lot, get to know them, but not too overbearing. Just casual conversations, and Japanese people aren't used to that. Perhaps if I was Japanese, this is really strange, but if I was fully Japanese, I'm Japanese American, by the way, I think they would have shied away from me, like, oh, you're getting too personal or whatever. But because they eventually found out through my accent as well that I'm not fully Japanese, I'm a foreigner, they kind of opened their hearts or their doors, and they began to engage in conversation with me, and we became not good friends, but some people I became really good friends with. But we became we had a really good relationship, and they would become regulars, and they would spread the word, and their friends would spread the word, and it got to a point where people would come from overseas to my place, and this happened in a matter of, I don't know, 6 months. For me, that progress was great. I was like, because I didn't even know if anybody was going to come, really. Within several months, I started functioning as a actual cafe, like a real. I was like, wow, okay, I can sell coffee and make a living. So that's what happened.
He went on to point out the weaknesses of his governance, including the lack or absence of a business strategy, such that his business only focused on short-term responsibilities.
Almost 10 years I had the cafe. In that whole 10 years, I'm not sure I was able to save anything for myself. I was spending a lot of money, but it was so not organized for growth. It was always like day by day. But the only reason why it survived for almost 10 years is because we had a steady influx of customers, like really devoted customers, and that's the only reason why I stayed afloat. And it's kind of dangerous. It was, for me, it's very dangerous. Because I never had to think about, well, what do I have to do next to try and get more sales? Because it was always just, it was frequent.
Another governance challenge which he mentioned was the problem of record keeping.
I had no records. Zero records. If I did keep records, it would have shown really good digits. It would have shown good numbers. But I think I was spending a lot more than I was getting. And this is a big issue because maybe after a couple months or a few months, you might be able to go back really quick and create these records for yourself. But after a year or two, and you start losing track of everything, you don't know what's going on. I had no idea what was happening, except for the fact that I would go in the morning, open up, set up the machine, customers would come in, and the business was staying afloat because I was able to pay for the rent and the materials that I needed, the paper cups or whatever. That's all I knew.
Records are a key part of governing your business because they enable a business owner to track the business performance of his organization. And secondly, they help the business to comply with laws. For example, good financial records enable a business owner to pay the appropriate taxes. Another very important problem that the cafe faced was a lack of professional skills, especially in the area of accounting. The founder sought to do himself what he was not skilled to do.
I thought I could be my own accountant. I have no idea what an accountant does, basically. So there's no way I could have been my own accountant. And these things started like creeping up.
In addition, there was the problem of a lack of an appropriate strategy for personnel management.
I took on way too many responsibilities just alone, because I knew I could do it, and I did do it, and I did it really well. And I wouldn't admit to myself that I was burning myself out, but I was being burnt out.
Employees or anyone involved in the day-to-day running of an organization are important stakeholders in corporate governance because they are at the front line of the business, directly interacting with the customers. These customers are usually the main source of the business's income. This arises, of course, when the businesses buy their products or their services. Because of the importance of employees or those who are involved in the day-to-day running of the organization, the business needs to consider their employees' well-being so that they are in the best state to serve their customers in the best possible way, in whatever circumstances or context the business is in. The need to cater for the well-being of personnel applies to the owner of the business themselves, especially when they are involved in its day-to-day running, just like Glen was. Employee welfare may be achieved by setting aside periods of rest for the workers, giving reasonable work hours, all in accordance with the laws of the land where the business operates. Eventually, the business fell into difficult financial times, and Mr. Onodera was compelled to shut down the business after 10 years.
I couldn't pay for the lease or the rent. Or I foresaw that basically. There was like the money was, it was like, where was the money going? I didn't know where the money was going, and so yeah. Long story short, that's what was going on. Like I couldn't afford to buy the paper cups that I need for takeout coffee, which was like the majority of the income. Takeout. When I started stressing on how am I going to get the coffee beans or paying for the milk, like I mentioned before, like all that was, when you're paying it, you don't think anything's wrong because the milk is there and you can make the products or whatever you're selling. But when you start stressing about like, whoa, how am I going to get the milk and where's the money going? Why? How come I don't have this much money? That's scary. So that's what prompted me to deciding that this month or this last month is going to be the last month, and then I just had to close.
Often, when a business owner experiences difficulties in their business, they come out on the other side with words of wisdom. Glen is no exception, and leaves us with two important points to consider. The first point is that weak corporate governance has a negative impact on a person's business.
Maybe it takes a couple of years for all that to accumulate and creep up on you, but it started from the very beginning when I just didn't keep records, and I was just really irresponsible with just everything financially. I suppose it's something that just is inevitably going to happen. In my case, it took 10 something years. But it's gonna happen, if you don't keep all these records and be stern about your income and outcome. This is bound to happen. You're gonna be faced with the reality that, oh, I can't pay for rent.
The second point is that one ought to take measures to implement good corporate governance practices right from the start of their business. We shall let Glen have the final word in this respect.
So if you have the passion, you're almost there. If you want to open up a shop or open up a business, you're almost bound to succeed if you keep that passion. But bottle that passion and keep it on the side for a moment and prepare yourself for the reality part, the boring part. I have to say, for me it's boring. That's why I would have a partner. I mentioned that I would have a partner the next time if I was to do it, because I can't touch that stuff. But if you are able to do it yourself, or maybe you know someone who's good with these things, good with being realistic with numbers and things like this, partner up with him. Just be very prepared for the ins and outs of what's gonna happen on a daily basis, basically.